Welcome to the Ridin the Wall podcast, a new NASCAR podcast. We're just getting started with this. A little bit about who we are. I'm Chad.
I'm Justin.
It's Justin, my lifelong friend, since middle school?
Yeah.
Brothers from another mother. We're just going to talk about NASCAR. We're just two friends. We have no NASCAR experience. We're not involved in NASCAR other than Sundays when we watch it. And we're fans, friends, drinking buddies.
We like dirt track. We like asphalt tracks.
Yeah.
Just a fan of all racing.
Yeah, dirt track, asphalt, figure eight. Love figure eight.
Yeah.
I'm not big on Formula One, so if you're looking for Formula One, this is not a good place for you. But this is our first episode, so we're going to get started. And we're going to talk about maybe a look back at Daytona, a look ahead at Fontana, and maybe talk a little bit about our NASCAR Fantasy League, just because I've got some shots to throw at maybe a couple of people. Why not? Because they can't yell back at me right now. But just to start out, what did you think about Daytona? Leading up to it and the race and whatnot.
It was a good race. It was a lot of fun to watch. It was obviously most NASCAR fans know right now that was the longest Daytona in the history of the Daytona race.
Yes, it was long.
Yeah, and but it made for a good, interesting race. It was a great finish. I know a lot of people like to watch super speedway races to see the big one. We all know it's going to happen, but it's why it is exciting. It's always dangerous too. There's 39, 40 people out there on that track that putting themselves at risk. So I mean, why the big one is exciting, it's also not as exciting for the guys in the car.
Yeah.
So
I thought it was kind of fun when just listening to Tony Stewart commentate when he's got three cars out there. You know how much money he's got involved in that race, and then when one of his cars wrecks, or that one wreck towards the end when he had two or three of his cars in it.
Yeah, he's got four in it.
How he's not cursing on TV is just.
I'm sure he's holding back a lot.
Yeah,
I don't know Smoke personally, but I'm sure he's holding back quite a bit.
As soon as he takes the headphones off, he's.
And it's the same with Jeff Gordon. When Jeff Gordon's up there doing commentating, he's part owner in Hendricks Motorsports now, and he's got money tied up in those four Hendrick cars. I mean, it's a different side of the wall.
Yeah, that is true. I thought it was a pretty good race. I think of course you always got the hype with Daytona. Is it going to live up to the hype? I thought it was pretty good. I like the green flag, how long we had a green flag session there for a while, because we usually don't get that. But I don't know how much I'm a fan of. I don't know. It's kind of a double-edged sword for me. I am a fan of it, but I'm not really a fan of it. The too wide train racing, no movement, no passing. But it still has that edge of your seat feel because it could happen at any time.
Exactly.
One wrong move, and especially with these cars now, you bump someone, and any fan of NASCAR knows how much bumping is involved at Daytona, Talladega. You bump somebody just a little bit too hard.
It don't take much.
And they're going out.
I mean, you don't even have to bump them sometimes. Sometimes it's just taking the wind off somebody.
Yeah.
Or putting the wind on them.
Lighten up their tail end and they get squirrely.
But that is one thing I enjoy about the super speedways is you get to see them work as a team. Like you and I, we go to Bristol every year. We love that night race. But it's a short track. It's a half-mile course. You don't need the aerodynamics. It's not as important as it is on the super speedways. But
right.
You've got to be you can't be some prick all season long and then expect at Daytona or Talladega for all your buddies to join up with you, because you ain't gonna have nothing out there.
Right.
So that is one thing I do love about.
We're talking to you, Ross Chastain.
There's a melon for you. Uh, but no, it's that's one thing I love about them super speedways is you see the team sport come into play.
Yeah.
Um, you
And the
know, the
manufacturing side of it.
manufacturing as well.
Hmm.
You know, you it might be some guy you don't get along with very well behind you, but if you're in a Ford, he's in a Ford, you got to count on each other.
Right.
So I mean, taking care of the manufacturers is just as important as your owners.
Yeah. Um, something else that I noticed, this was in the qualifying races on Thursday, was in the past when these guys would come off of turn one, or I'm sorry, turn two, and they're coming down the backstretch, they would go out towards the wall quite a bit, and they would run that backstretch on the wall. Now they're not doing that. They run the low side around the turn. As soon as they come off the turn and they're in that backstretch, they're hugging that yellow line still, all the way down the backstretch into turn three. And I just noticed that and thought it was,
It's different, but it's a new gen car.
yeah,
You
it's
know,
kind of the
taller
difference between
spoilers.
the cars, how much, the drivers and teams have learned about what the air does to these things and passing opportunities and things like that. Because, you know, we've been fans since way back in the 80s. So, we've been watching all those times when Dale Earnhardt, Bill Elliott, and guys like that, they come off at turn two and they're shooting up towards the wall real quick.
Yep.
The only time they would dive down low was to block somebody or take that air off, and then they get right back up towards the wall. They don't do that now. It's just something that I noticed. But
No, it's Daytona. Going back to the beginning of our conversation, Daytona's the legendary race.
mm-hmm.
It's not just a 1 day event. It's speed week. It's race week at Daytona,
Right.
and um, there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of tradition there, and that's why it's a staple of its own.
Yeah.
Daytona. That race is. I mean, any fan of Earnhardt, it's a shrine.
Mm-hmm.
Any NASCAR fan, it's a staple on its own.
Right. And it's one of them must sees if you're a fan.
Absolutely.
I haven't been there. I want to get there at some point, even if it's for the summer race.
The Saturday night race.
Yeah, the
That'd be a
Saturday
good
night
time.
race would be pretty cool, but I definitely want to be there for the
Now, I had a buddy
500.
that went for the first time this year. He was sending me pictures and everything the whole time he was down there. And my buddy, he's been to Nashville, he's been to Talladega, he's been to Bristol. He's been to a handful of tracks, but he really wasn't looking forward to that drive from southern Indiana to Florida for
I
a
bet.
race. But once he got there, he said, "Man, he said this is unlike anything else." He said, "I can't describe it. Just the feeling and the history that you get here." He was talking about all the plaques on the ground down the beach. They got these bronze plaques of all the old races when they used to race on sand.
Okay.
Back in
Yeah.
when it started. But just the history, the nostalgia, and just the vibe there, he said was undescribable.
Yeah. Yeah. Earl from our racing league, he was down there for the first time this year. He sent me some pictures of his seats. He was right there on the start finish line, basically in the bottom section. I thought, my gosh, that was crazy seats because that was the first time he'd ever been down there. You know, that's where he was sitting at. It's like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's
And one thing, my buddy, his name's Shannon. Um, him and his daughter went. Him and his daughter go to these races together and stuff like that. So he was showing me videos from where he was sitting at, and he was sitting, like 10 rows from the top, all the way down on the right. Like after you cross the start finish line. And one thing that I liked about him showing me that video was you could see the entire track and you could hear the cars the entire track.
that's cool.
Yeah, and I mean you could see the whole race. Uh, we'd been to the Brickyard when they ran it, up in Indianapolis up until last year, the year before when they started the
Yeah,
NDGP.
a couple years ago.
But in our seats up there at Brickyard, we always sit the exit at turn 4, and you could get a glimpse of the cars going into turn 2 all the way out there, miles away.
Yeah.
And but they were so far out there, you'd get a glimpse of them, you could see them, but they were so far away you couldn't hear them. And
Yeah.
that's pretty crazy for a NASCAR. 850 horsepower going around there, 39 cars, and you can't hear them.
Right.
Yeah,
People don't understand how big Indianapolis is until
Right.
they've been there, and it's monstrous.
Yeah.
Crazy. Um, so what what kind of things are you looking forward to seeing this year out of the whole season? Like season long, what might be some things that you might be looking to see?
I'm looking to see Kevin Harvick pull some wins out in his final season. That's what I'm looking to see.
That would be nice.
That's my guy right there.
I'd like to see the old man go out with a few.
I mean, I've always been a Tony Stewart fan, and here he is as Stewart Haas owner, and my favorite driver driving for him. I'm a big Chase Briscoe fan too, and
Yeah.
there's another one of my boys right here from home that's that's racing for Stewart Haas, and no, I've been a Kevin Harvick fan for a long time. I'm a fan of a lot of them guys, but Kevin Harvick, the closer, he's always been my guy, and I'd like to see him pull 5, 6, 7 wins out this season.
Yeah. I'd like to see Harvick do pretty good. I mean, he's never been my favorite guy. He probably was right after Earnhardt died. I think he was probably everybody's favorite guy right after Earnhardt died. But through the years,
I don't know. It seemed like he got a lot of hate mail after they stuck him in that car.
Yeah, that's just from I mean, people
a lot
being
of
too diehard of a fan.
Right.
He had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, but he went out there. You remember, he went out there
He
at
did
Atlanta.
damn good.
At Atlanta, he pulled that win out.
What was that? His third race?
Yeah,
Something like that.
something like that.
Third race in the car and then wins over Jeff Gordon.
But a lot of people, need to understand that Kevin Harvick was a big Dale Earnhardt fan.
Dale Earnhardt was looking to put him in a ride before he died.
Right, and
So
that was pretty hard for
yeah.
Kevin to. I mean, he got that ride. He earned it.
Mhm.
But he was put in a pretty tough position there,
Right.
filling in the biggest shoes that's ever been on a racetrack before.
Yeah.
And taking a lot of that beating.
Mhm.
But that's why he's the closer. He went out there and he done it quick.
He did it.
Proved
He
to
did
him
a
that
pretty
he
good
was
job.
worthy of being in that seat.
Shut everybody up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really want to see him win. Not only win some races, I want to see him be there at the end. Make it a few rounds into the playoffs. Hopefully he makes it to the final 4. We'll see if that happens or not. But
last year with them new gen cars coming, we had a lot of first time winners. We had a lot of unexpected winners. We were very used to over the last 8, 9, 10 years seeing Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Mark Truex.
yeah, the same big guys.
We were used to seeing them guys get those wins week after week. Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski. We were used to seeing those names. And then, I think we was like 8 races in, we had 8 different winners last year.
Yeah, something like that. It was ridiculous.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
But it was exciting again.
Yeah, because you didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah, it threw our fantasy league into a mess.
Tell me about it. I went from the podium to the basement.
Right. But no, I'm looking for a real good year for Kevin Harvick. I'm looking to see a few of these guys have good seasons. We had a big change with Kyle Busch going to Richard Childress. We've seen Ty Gibbs come up from Xfinity to Monster Cup and join his grandpa's team.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see what kind of feelings from the off season carry over onto the track this season.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to.
Right. I think Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch, I think they did pretty damn good there at Daytona as teammates.
Yeah, 2 races and they worked good in both of them. I think that's going to continue.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I'm looking forward to seeing. I've never been a Kyle Busch fan, but I am now.
Yeah.
I mean, he still may not be my favorite driver. I don't know if I have a favorite driver.
favorite or not, you got to respect him.
Right.
You know, and that's
You got to
how
respect the man, his talent.
he's probably the best wheelman on that track.
Oh, without
I
well,
mean,
between him and Larson, in my opinion, between him and Larson, it's them two
yeah,
have
yeah,
got to be the best, and that might be who my favorite driver is Kyle Larson. But without a doubt, with Busch moving over to the Chevy and being an RCR, I knew he's gonna do good. You
yeah.
know,
Yeah,
with what RCR has done in the past, especially with a crazy driver that was just completely hard on cars with Earnhardt. Richard was able to build those cars around him. That way he could do what he wanted to
well,
and needed to
and
win a
But
race.
the thing about the difference was from then to now is Dale was building them cars too. He wasn't just driving them.
Right, he was in there turning wrenches on
Yeah,
them. Yeah,
exactly. And that's
so he
one
knew.
thing that that I think we miss
Yeah.
as the good old boy racing fans.
Mm-hmm.
And but Dale was in there turning wrenches with the rest of that crew.
Yeah.
Because he knew what he's going to put that car through.
Mm-hmm.
And but no, it's with Kyle. Kyle was with Chevrolet years ago.
Yeah.
He had some issues with Richard Childress back years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a different Kyle Busch now than
Yes,
it
it
was
is.
then. He's matured a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and a real racing fan could see that. Um, I've got I myself wasn't a big fan of Kyle Busch over the years, and it was the same way with Kurt Busch. When Kurt Busch started off, I wasn't a big fan of Kurt.
Yeah.
But the older he got and the more mature he became one of my favorite drivers.
Yeah. I mean, even last year I was rooting for him quite a bit, and I've never really rooted for Kurt Busch, but past few years I found myself wanting him to win some.
Yep. And I'd love to see him make it back out there on the track.
Oh yeah, I hope so.
But no, it's we got some other things to look forward to. It's going to be, we got some real changes with the road course races this year.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to do the stage stops this year. They're going to still award stage points as they cross the finish line, but there's not going to be the mandatory caution at the end of the stage.
Right.
I think that'll be a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of stage racing. Period. I mean, I understand it. I understand why they're doing it. I guess I'm a little old school.
Right.
So.
Well, I mean, I like the fact, and I'm with you on that. I'm old school myself, and I wasn't a huge fan of it, but as the season goes on and you see people getting into the chase and see people furthering themselves into the chase because of stage points, but maybe not have won a race, I enjoy that part of it.
Yeah.
I remember the Winston Cup days when you had 12, 13 races left and nobody could catch the guy that was in first place. You knew who, you could do the math and you knew who was going to win the Winston Cup series that year.
Yeah, it was clinched.
12,
3 races left.
Races left.
Yeah.
And so I do like it for that reason. I like the playoff aspect of it. It kind of gives you that March Madness esque type of deal. You don't know what's going to come out of it, and it gives the list, I guess the
colleagues of the world.
Yeah.
The
it
owners,
gives them a chance.
Yeah, it gives
Ricky
the smaller
Stenhouse,
teams. Right.
Doherty Racing. JTG. They're in the chase right now. I mean,
they know it.
How awesome is that?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like Cindric last year, rookie first race, and bam, he's already in.
Yep.
So he can kind of focus on some of them races.
Chastain Suarez made it in last year.
Yeah.
I mean it's a great time, I think, but this year with the road courses not having those mandatory stops, I think it's going to be interesting. It'll hopefully make the road courses more interesting. I'm not a big fan of road course racing, and I know some of you NASCAR fans might not like me for saying this, but you want to watch road course, go to IndyCar.
Right. I agree. I like having a couple because these guys are supposed to be the best in the world, so they should be able to perform on the big tracks, on the short tracks, even on the dirt tracks, and a road course. But the sport was built on the ovals.
Exactly.
No matter what size.
I'm all about 2 road courses a year.
Yeah.
We do Sonoma, we do Watkins Glen.
And I'm even fine if we rotate them around. Maybe we take Watkins Glen off for a year and put, let's try Chicago in its place. See if it works. See what kind of, fan following we get in Chicago now, and just kind of see how it goes. and then we'll go right back to Watkins Glen. But I want to keep. I would love to keep Sonoma and Watkins Glen on the schedule all the time because they're the old school road courses. But I don't like getting into the, like you said,
I
the
think
7 or 8.
Yeah, we're up to 7 now, I believe.
Yeah, and then they're wanting to add more. I see it. I understand it. I'm not as big of a fan. I would much rather see more short tracks because, again, this sport was kind of built on the Saturday night racing, the grassroots racing, and we need more of that because that's the exciting racing.
Yeah.
The short tracks.
Yep.
That's the
beating and banging.
The beating and
the
banging.
The strategy comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's that. It's a team sport. You got to count on. It's not just that driver out there. You got a crew chief and a whole team of people behind them walls that are just as much part of that as that driver is.
Yeah, and you got to calculate that fuel mileage. You got to calculate the tire wear. All while this driver's out there getting a tar beat out of him and keeping his cool at the same time. So that's kind of interesting. I like that. Like when we went to Bristol, Kevin Harvick and Chase Elliott just out there
Man, don't get
and
me started.
Kevin Harvick, everybody's seen him fuming in that car with 10 laps to go.
But the most popular driver the last 7-8 years, Chase Elliott, he's took over that spot for Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's the most popular driver on the track. And I like Chase Elliott, I really do.
I like Chase
Elliott. I
think
he's a talented young man with a damn good future in front of him. And but no, as a Kevin Harvick fan, I didn't like that. Not at all. Everybody in the crowd, I think I was the only one cussing Chase Elliott, and everybody else was.
I was rooting for
cheering.
Harvick to dump him. I mean, if that's all that's standing in your way of a Bristol victory, you dump the man and go. I mean, how many times have we seen it over the years?
Right. Nobody.
Yeah, he'll be mad for a week, and he may even get you back next week. But
nobody would have done that to Dale Senior or Tony Stewart. Them two guys right there. No, you wouldn't have even thought about doing it because you'd have been in the wall.
You know it's coming.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And
how big was Terry Labonte? Terry Labonte was huge.
Right.
Dale didn't care. Moved him right out of the way, and that's what I was hoping to see Kevin do to Chase.
Yeah.
Nothing against Chase, and like I've said, I'm not.
If it was me in that car and I had the opportunity to block for my teammate to get the win, I'm not going to say I wouldn't do the same thing.
Right.
I wasn't in that car.
But I don't think he was blocking for Larson to get the win. He was just pissed off because of that tire.
Yeah.
He said, I'm Chase Elliott, and you're not going to do that to me. But I was hoping Kevin said, yeah, but I'm Kevin Harvick, and I am going to do it to you.
Right.
Watch this.
Now, I mean, Chase
Hold
Elliott,
my Busch Light.
So, I'm not going to say that. Well, one thing I'm glad it didn't carry over into the pits like I thought it probably should have at the time. I was so mad and upset. If I'd have been in Kevin Harvick's car, that's one thing I loved about the old school NASCAR days though was when you piss somebody off, when you done somebody wrong out there on that track, he's gonna have it handed to you in the pits. You could expect it.
Mm-hmm.
And NASCAR, I mean, they've done a good job on trying to keep that thing calm down and everything. They still.
Yeah. They don't want to see the fists flying, but the fans, they sometimes want to see the fists flying just
sometimes
because
it's necessary.
Right. Sometimes it's deserved.
Yeah. Sometimes it's
Sometimes that's how the young men learn the old man rules.
Yeah.
They have to learn that respect, and that's something that we don't see a whole lot of in today's NASCAR is that respect, because you see all these drivers just running over them on lap 3. There's no point in that.
No.
But that's one thing that I have an issue with is the young guys coming up.
But I mean, you look at hockey. They've never. I'm not going to say they haven't tried to curb the fighting. I'm not saying NASCAR needs to be a cage fight every weekend either.
Right.
But those guys are out there, and especially those veterans. They grew up watching NASCAR in the 80s and 90s, just like you and I did,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what that's part of the deal.
Right.
That's the fun part that's not in the contract is if somebody does you wrong, you get to whip some ass after the race.
Right. Or you put them in a wall, one of the two.
You don't have to go back to your camper with nothing on your shoulders. You can leave it right there on the track. That's what NASCAR is.
Yeah. And the guy that got beat up knows why he got beat up.
Right. Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson last year.
That one pissed me off in so many ways it ain't funny. We'll talk about that at some point in the future, but that one pissed me off. And
I'll tell you what. The most positive thing I can say about that incident was Kyle Larson was a bigger man than me.
He was a much bigger man than me in that moment.
Yeah, so we'll leave it.
We'll leave it at that for now.
We'll let it sit right there.
That'll be a future episode.
But no, it's gonna be. There's gonna be a lot of changes this year. You know, the road courses, Chicago coming in. You know, the downtown.
How do you think that's gonna go?
I think it's gonna be great as far as the fan base goes. I think it's going to be great to get and that's what NASCAR needs. NASCAR's been trying to build a bigger fan base.
They need some new blood,
right?
In some of these bigger cities that don't know what NASCAR really is, other than they think it's a redneck beer drinking sport,
right?
Which it kind of is, but I'm sure there's some rednecks and beer drinkers in Chicago.
That's what NASCAR is. Everybody's welcome.
Right.
Have a good time.
Right.
And I think it's going to be great for the sport. I think it's going to be great for the fan base. As far as racing goes, it's going to take a lot to impress me on if Chicago's a success or not.
My early opinion, and this is just my opinion, I have nothing to base this on other than it's Chicago. And I have nothing against the city of Chicago because I've never been. But I just think a street race in that big of a city is probably going to flop. I hope I'm wrong, but I think it may. I would love to see it do good. But there again, then if it does good, we add another road course to the schedule. I don't really want another road course to the schedule. Right. That's just my opinion. But I'm sure there's going to be some people out there that don't like that opinion.
Well, I mean, I'm right there with you. You know, as a NASCAR fan, I'd like to see, you know, we've all heard, we know North Wilkesboro's coming up this year on the All-Star race.
Oh, yeah, I'm ready for that.
That is so exciting, you know, as a NASCAR fan, especially a veteran NASCAR fan.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see this race go at North Wilkesboro. I've heard rumor that Rockingham will be on the circuit next year. Or some part of the circuit, yeah.
Really? Now, I've heard they were repaving it. You know, I've seen some YouTube videos of the repave job going on right now at Rockingham. And I haven't heard anything as far as definitely being on the schedule. I have heard some things if they're looking to try to get it back on there. I would love to see Rockingham back on it. Rockingham, Wilkesboro, you know, all them old school tracks.
Yeah, and we got some veterans, you know, right in there with Dale Earnhardt Jr. You know, him and his group that he's got around him, they're the ones going around and revamping these tracks.
Yeah.
And that takes a real, not just somebody that's got so much family history in the sport, but a fan of the sport. It takes a real fan to want to do something like that. And that's one thing I love about the Earnhardt family is they're not just great NASCAR drivers, great race car drivers. They're great fans.
Yeah, and they're great ambassadors for the sport. They
put as much into the sport as the sports gave them.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So we're going to be racing at California. What are your thoughts on California? I know what my thoughts are. I think it's a great track. It's a wide track, a lot of fast.
I love Auto Club.
Action track.
I love Auto Club.
I do too.
It is a fast track.
It's not the same usual. I mean, it's a 2-mile track, but it's not like Talladega and Daytona. It's unique in its own way.
And that's
so many grooves to drive.
Right, and that's one thing that make it special. You know, is it's not your normal super speedway. You know, it's got its own little.
You can drive on the apron
right.
and be all right. You know, that's cool. It's unique.
And
now we can edit that out.
The soda water's getting to me a little bit.
Yep.
But no, it's I always love Auto Club following up Daytona. You know, you go from a super speedway, just, you know, one of the most exciting races of the year, the intro to the season at Daytona 500, go right into Auto Club. Just because you get to see that speed carry on. It gives you a little taste of who's going to be fast all year, you know.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, some guys you see finish up front Daytona might not be because they're the fastest car on the track, but because they made it through all the wrecks.
They made it through all the wrecks.
Right.
They had a good teammate pushing them.
Right.
You know, you don't have that push partner at California. You just have the speed, and.
Yeah, you got a draft. You got
you got the draft, but you don't have that,
right.
That bumper to bumper.
You don't see the
push.
train racing.
Right.
But no, I think somebody that's gonna. I think he's probably one of the top three favorites for that race at Auto Club is going to be Kyle Busch. And
Oh yeah,
I think he's got a very good chance of going out there and
I
taking
think
the
he's going to
check.
win.
I think he's going to take the checkered flag this weekend.
I really think he's going to win, and I don't think it's going to be his last win of the season either. I think he's got something to prove in that RCR car. He's got a big FU for Joe Gibbs.
Yep.
Um, and I might be an old man, but this is still what I can do. You wanted to put the kid in the car. Go ahead. I'm going to win races over here.
Yeah, I'm going to win.
And I like that.
Uh-huh.
I like that. That's why I'm going to be sporting a Kyle Busch jacket as soon as I can get one, And I never thought I'd say that in my life. But with him in an RCR car.
10 years ago, you got your ass kicked for saying it.
Yeah, you would have. 10 years ago, I'd have been embarrassed to say that. But it's going to brings back feelings of Earnhardt. It brings back feelings of
Smoke.
20, 25 years ago. Yeah, the Smoke type of drivers, the Earnhardt type of drivers in that RCR car that's going to let him do what he wants to do and what he needs to do. You don't have an owner now that says, "Here's what I want you to do." You got an owner now that says, "Do what you need to do. Let me know what you need. I'll get it for you."
Right.
And that's all Kyle Busch needs.
And I think not myself included, not a lot of people know and understand how the Kyle Busch Richard Childress relationship, their personal relationship is.
Right.
We know that they are co-workers basically.
Yeah.
But one thing that you can say is whatever Kyle Busch does out there on that track, you can bet he's going to have Richard Childress's blessing to do it.
Oh yeah.
Not only because of his experience, but because Kyle Busch is a team owner himself.
Yeah, so he understands that perspective.
In the other
Yeah.
NASCAR series.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows what it's like to have money tied up as a team owner. So he can put himself in Richard's shoes, and he's definitely in Kyle Busch's shoes every minute of that race. So I think you're going to see really good decision making out of Kyle Busch, and that's going to help. That's going to help Austin Dillon's career.
Oh, tremendously.
Time over
I think we're already seeing that.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
2 races in.
Yeah.
And I've never really been an Austin Dillon fan. I want to see the kid do good, just because of who he is, who he's been involved with, where he's at. But
I like Austin. I think, I think a lot of the opinions fall on
the number.
Opinions fall on him being Richard's grandson.
Yeah. Well, that and he's got the 3 car.
Right.
A lot of people didn't want that.
I'll agree. I'll voice my opinion on that one, Chad. I'll say that number should have been put up.
Yeah.
I know, in other sports they retire numbers, but you can go, nobody on the Chicago Bulls will ever be number 23 again.
Right.
But you can go to the Detroit Pistons to be number 23 if you want. It don't work like that in NASCAR. There's only so many numbers.
Right. That's true.
So I get that side of it, but I don't think every legend that comes out of the sport, their number should be retired either.
Right.
I
get that.
The contributions that Dale Earnhardt made to the sport, the fan base that Dale Earnhardt had, that number should have definitely been hanging up somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
I was a Rusty Wallace fan. I don't think
Rusty was a good driver. Don't get me wrong. I like Rusty.
Here's my thing is I liked Rusty, and I liked him because of his short track racing ability.
Yeah.
That guy was to me, he was the best of that time on short track.
Rusty was great.
Yeah. But I don't think that number 2 should have been put up.
True.
Mark Martin.
Yeah, look at the 48, the 43.
Yeah.
Other 7-time champions, their number's still out there.
Right.
But they didn't go out in that way, and and Petty had probably just as much to do with NASCAR as far as building the sport as Earnhardt did.
And probably the fan base too.
True.
But I'll say it. I know I'll never see it again, but it don't matter who you were, what decade you raced in. There was never a fan base like the Intimidators.
That's true.
Period.
That's
I mean,
true.
you watch a NASCAR in the mid '90s, late '90s, late '80s. It didn't matter when.
When he took the lead, everybody in the stands was.
But you look at the color of all the shirts in the crowd.
Yeah.
They was all black, middle of the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Hell with that. I mean, I might wear a white Dale Earnhardt shirt, but those stands were black. You might see a rainbow shirt in here in 1993 when Jeff Gordon made his debut, but
Yeah.
that that was something different. And that's when you really seen the NASCAR come alive again. Is when you had the dark force of Dale Earnhardt, the Intimidator, going against the young buck Rainbow Warrior Jeff Gordon, and
Yeah.
it was good versus evil.
Old
Good,
versus young and
yeah,
everything.
yeah.
Complete opposites, and they're fighting for the same thing.
And it made NASCAR. Uh,
It
it
took
was
them up a few levels.
right, but the fans were hungry again.
Yeah.
And nobody was just sitting in their seats. It was everybody was standing.
Right, because nobody really challenged Earnhardt before Gordon came in. I mean, you had Bill Elliott.
Well,
He was pretty close to.
probably my number one of all time was Davey Allison.
Yeah.
I loved the Alabama gang.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'd be real eager to say that I think that number should have been put up. Davey was a young man when he passed away.
Yeah.
But the immediate growth that young man had when he got out there on the NASCAR track. I mean, from the time he started, he had Bobby and Donnie right there teaching him as he was growing up. But
mm-hmm.
Davey was a special cat.
Yeah.
I loved watching him.
Yeah, I agree with that. Can't take nothing away from him. Going back to Fontana, this is the last race of the 2 mile. Are you a fan of? Would you rather have it as the 2 mile as it is now, or the short track? Because I'm torn on this. I'm torn. I love the 2 mile that California has. Like we said, it's a unique 2 mile.
And I've thought a lot about this over the past few weeks. I know they're revamping this track down to a short track.
And I think they're tearing out the big part. I thought maybe they would keep that for other races, but no, they're getting rid of it.
Right.
And that's
now my personal opinion is I wish they'd leave it alone, because we've got a lot more short tracks out there on the circuit than we do bigger tracks.
Right.
And not only that, kind of the tiebreaker for me on that is these tracks that they're revamping, like we just spoke about, North Wilkesboro, Rockingham. Those are short tracks. We're bringing tracks back, or this crew of people are bringing these NASCAR tracks back. So we're adding more short tracks into the circuit. So why do this to Auto Club?
Yeah.
It's I'd rather them just leave it alone and maybe revamp some more. So it'd be awesome to see them get to, other than the legendary racetracks, which I will say are Bristol, Talladega, Daytona. Race those 3 tracks twice a year like they do now.
Yeah.
But everything else,
I'd be happy throwing Martinsville in that group.
Well, I mean Darlington too. We could we could
True.
make those arguments.
Yeah, if we go like that, the list is gonna keep getting bigger and bigger.
Right. But I know, and Martinsville was right there for me too. But I love the paperclip, But I'm one of them guys like, I don't need to see Las Vegas twice a year. I don't need to see Phoenix twice a year. I don't.
Right.
It's I don't need to see Atlanta twice a year. I loved Atlanta last year, where it's the fastest short track in America.
Yeah, it looked fun. I mean, it looked like it could be a fun race.
But I would like to see them get so many more tracks involved. They introduced Nashville into the circuit. And I like that. I'd like to see them do this to where they can make 36 races a year and just hit Bristol, Daytona, and Talladega twice a year, and those are the only 3.
Yeah. Yeah, and it spreads it out across the country. You can do things like this Chicago that they're going to try, or possibly even making the Coliseum. I don't think the Coliseum is big enough, but things like that. It gives them room to expand.
Well, and I mean, obviously, I would like to see them do, like Charlotte Motor Speedway. The Coke 600 is such an iconic race.
Yeah.
Not only is it a blast to watch, it's a night race, but you've got the Indy 500 right before it. A lot of these drivers are doing the double.
Yeah.
but they do the Coke 600 on the track, and then they do the Charlotte Road Course. I was really disappointed when they did away with the Brickyard 400 at Indianapolis. That was a fun race to go to. It was a
Right.
great atmosphere.
Hmm.
Uh, and Indianapolis, I mean, what can you say? It's the
It's
racing capital of
Indianapolis.
the world.
Right.
And uh, I would like to see them do something like that with Indianapolis, where they do the Brickyard 400, and then in the fall come back for
Yeah,
the
because the
Indy
fan
Road
base
Course.
is there in Indianapolis. I
Right.
mean, you can do the oval in the spring and the road course in the fall, or vice versa, and you're gonna fill the seats both times,
Yep.
and you know you're going to.
I mean, the one thing that was, I will say, the one bad thing about the Brickyard 400 a few times got caught up there when they were doing it in July, you know, and being out there in that infield, and it's 95 degrees, boy, it was hot.
Yeah.
And uh, if you're fortunate enough to get one of them tickets where you can sit under the awning right there at the start finish, it makes a world of difference. But
Right.
I was a younger buck then, and
Right.
I wanted to be in the infield, so it was just about the
Experience.
the cold sodies and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the pretty ladies as it was.
Right.
The
Scenery's great.
There's a lot of corn in Indiana for a reason.
That's true. Yeah, I was at the Brickyard one time, and I think it was end of July or 1st of August or whatever. All I remember about this was I don't remember the end of the race because the beverages were cold and they
Going
went down
way too
easy. I don't remember the end of the race, but I do remember waking up the next day and I was so sunburnt that I was almost glowing red. It was crazy.
Yeah,
But it was a great race. I do remember Jeff Gordon. That year I went, Jeff Gordon got black flagged for going too slow. So that was a highlight.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can go with you on that.
Yeah.
But no, it's that's my big thing with them taking Auto Club down to a short track race is, I mean, I'm all about. I think I've got faith in the people making decisions in NASCAR because I think what they're doing is working. I think I can say in the last 5 to 8 years I've seen the fan base grow.
Yeah.
Going to these races
Hmm.
and interacting with these crowds and everything. I've seen the fan base get bigger, and I think we're seeing a lot more of that. And so
I
whatever
agree.
they're doing, I think it is working.
Yes.
And I'll put my faith and trust in those big wigs at NASCAR to keep making those
Yeah, because I
hard
mean,
decisions. You're not going to please everybody.
no, and I'm proof because there was a time when I didn't pay attention to NASCAR. I almost got out of it. I mean, I wasn't. I was still. I knew who the drivers were,
A lot of people
but a
did
lot of
right
the
after
big
Dale.
names were going away, like the Carl Edwards and you know, um, I don't even can't even remember who all.
Dale
Tony
Jarrett.
Stewart, Dale Jarrett, Carl Edwards. All those drivers were retiring just
Clint Boyer.
all the time.
You know,
Yes,
that
and
was
it's
just a few
like
years ago.
all I'm getting is new guys that I don't really care about anymore, and I kind of faded away from it. But now I'm back.
Well, I mean, the guys that you'd built that relationship with, watching
Yeah.
them week in and week out for 20 years,
Right.
they were going away, and we didn't have that relationship, I guess you'd say, with
With
these
Chase
new,
Elliott
with
and,
these new
and
young
guys like
drivers,
that.
you know.
Right.
But I'll tell you, I've been pretty impressed with a lot of these young drivers. I know they're starting younger than they used to.
Yeah.
You look at Ty Gibbs. You look at that boy and you think, boy, he's coming in for a pit stop. They're gonna wipe that shield off and change a couple tires and change his diaper and send him back
Right.
out there.
Give him a pat on the backside and say, "Go get him, son."
I mean, he's a young kid, but I mean, he's got talent.
He's got talent, or he wouldn't be where he is today.
Exactly.
But yeah, I agree with that.
But I also look forward to building that relationship with these guys. I know obviously you and I are both older than these young bucks, but um, you can see the fire in some of them's belly. Some of them you
Oh,
can't.
yeah.
I think Ty Gibbs. I think he's got that fire in his belly. I think.
I like Tyler Reddick.
I do.
I like Tyler
I go
Reddick.
with you on that. I'm a like I said earlier. Beginning of this when this show started. I'm a big Chase Briscoe fan.
Mhm.
He's just
Mhm.
he's our hometown boy. He's 20 minutes from right here in Scottsburg where we grew up,
Right.
and you can't help but to root for the kid.
Oh yeah.
There was at one point when he was working his way up, and
Yeah. He did it the right way.
he did, he did,
He got his hands dirty. He
yeah,
didn't buy it.
exactly.
And I think that's a lot of people don't like the guys that buy their seat. And I think that's kind of the impression that Ty Gibbs gives, is that he bought his seat, Grandpa's money. Whereas, like you said, a Chase Briscoe, he grew up working on these cars. He grew up racing these cars that he worked on and he built, and it got him to where he is.
Well,
So
I'll tell you, my thoughts on that are I haven't seen Ty Gibbs race enough at this level to give a fair and honest opinion of the kid.
true.
I mean, I agree with you on he wouldn't be where he's at now if he wasn't. Didn't
Oh, I'm
have
not
some
saying
talent.
it's my opinion of Ty Gibbs. I'm saying that that's what a lot of fans out there have.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but I think probably one of the best things that Ty Gibbs could do as a 43-year-old man myself, one of the best things
Oh,
Ty
you're
Gibbs
only
could
43?
do. I am.
I thought you was a couple years older than that.
No, sir.
Because I'm a few years older than
Yeah,
that. I
you
thought
are.
you didn't
Yeah.
you didn't have to agree so quick.
But I think one of the best moves Ty Gibbs could make would be go talk to Austin Dillon, because I think he got a lot of the same grief that Ty Gibbs got by being, hey,
Yeah.
here's Grandpa's boy, he's getting a seat for nothing.
Yep.
And Austin Dillon has proved to be a winner.
Right.
And maybe somebody at Austin's age could coach and help Ty Gibbs
Yep.
deal with that kind of pressure.
Yeah, kind of let him know what to expect.
Yep.
And
How to handle it.
I think
Brush
Austin
it
Dillon
off.
handled it pretty well. I mean, from what I know, I mean, I don't know the insides of it, but I think he did pretty well, taking that heat and showing that they were wrong.
Well, I mean, he didn't just have the heat of Grandpa's boy; he had the heat of being in that number 3.
Right.
You know, a
Right.
lot
So
of
he
people
had
didn't-
he had probably that worst heat.
Yeah.
You know. Um,
But he handled it well. I
Yeah.
really think he handled.
Yeah, I
You
think
didn't
he
hear
did
a
too.
lot out of him. I think he probably had a lot of sleepless nights, and probably,
I'm sure he
probably
did.
a few times he wanted to say hell with this and throw it down and go home, but
Yeah.
he didn't, and he's turned out to be I think he'll be a Hall of Famer.
I think so. If it keeps on the track he's going, yeah, I think so. I do believe, going back to the Fontana thing, I think the short track, it depends on what they do with it. Is it going to be a short track? Are they going to try to recreate Bristol? Because
You
I don't
can't
know
do
if that'll
that.
work. I don't know if that'll work.
You can't do that.
Right.
It's the
Are
last
they
great
gonna
Coliseum for a reason.
Exactly. That's just a special. It's just a special place on the map, you know. Are they going to try to
They
create
need to make
something?
they need to make it its own.
Yes, they need to
Just
have
like
its
Auto
own.
Club, it's a
Yeah,
it's a
just
big
like Auto
track.
Club was with the 2 mile. It was its own special place
Yep.
that required. You couldn't just take the Daytona style of racing and go to California and win with it. You can't take.
Well, here's the thing, and you can't even take your car setup from
Right.
Daytona to Auto Club. You got to put the work in.
Yeah, you gotta make them tweaks, and you gotta make them little adjustments here and there, and the driver has to adjust to that.
And they're going from, the way the schedule sits right now, they go Daytona, Auto Club, Las Vegas. Las Vegas is a shorter track. I don't want them to be able to go from the new Auto Club short track right into Las Vegas and end up with the same results. I like seeing the work they put in. I like seeing the adjustments they make.
Yeah.
I like to see a driver not just being a driver. I like to see a driver that can make these decisions and tell his team what he needs.
Yeah.
And that's what NASCAR is.
Mhm.
It's obvious. We talked about it a little bit ago. The being a wheelman. Kyle Busch, one of the best out there, hands down. Probably one of the top 3. You mentioned Kyle Larson, and I'll agree with you over and over. Kyle Larson's probably not the best mechanic. I don't
Right.
know. I don't know how
Right.
much he turns wrenches, but I will tell you for a fact that it don't matter if you put that boy in a midget, a go-kart, a late model, a NASCAR. It don't matter what you put that boy in. He's going to drive the wheels off of it.
Oh yeah.
And he's
Oh,
gonna
he's gonna put it in the front.
Yeah. And I think Kyle Busch is like that myself.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd say Kyle got a earlier start at it. You know, he's been doing multiple types of cars
Yeah.
from a younger age
Hmm.
than probably Kyle did. But you know, there's a reason Kyle Busch is the winningest, got the most wins in NASCAR as of right now. You know,
Yeah.
because he is a whip man.
Hmm. So, one last thing before we go. We're, um, this fantasy league. It's I'm telling you, I've got all kinds of texts today from somebody, and you know who I'm talking about.
Sounds like my brother.
Yeah, it would be your brother.
Oh, Scotty Moore.
Oh yeah, he was. That's our HR department right there. And
Yeah, if you have any complaints, call him.
that's
He'll
right.
answer them for you.
That's right. We'll give you his number. We'll give you his HR number. After a few weeks, but we'll let you take all complaints up with him. He'll tell you exactly how it is, um, and laugh at you the whole time. But yeah, Scotty was talking to me today. He was, he hasn't made fun of me yet because he beat me at Daytona. He's way up on the board right now. I think he's sitting like what?
He only got 8 points in that first race.
Yeah, and I'm sitting at 32 points, so I'm a good little ways below him, and that don't sit well with me. I'm used to it because that's how I was all last year. The next gen car just put me at the basement, and I couldn't really do anything about it. But somehow, some way, Scott did pretty good last year. I got to give him that. He did really good.
I tell you what, though, I mean, Scott never was a big NASCAR fan. He's always been a race fan. He loved going to Sportsdrome with us.
Oh yeah,
and,
yeah.
Stuff like that. He always enjoyed that kind of stuff.
Well, he went to Brownstown with me.
Yeah.
Once.
Figure eights.
Mm-hmm.
He loved that stuff. But when he got into this NASCAR Fantasy League with us, it really sparked his interest.
Yeah.
And he started watching races and paying attention, doing his homework. I mean, that there's one thing that you can't beat that guy on his homework.
No, you're not going to beat him on that. That's for sure. And he's going to talk trash to you the whole time.
Yeah, he will. But that's half the fun,
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. No,
I
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Right.
Wouldn't have it any other way. But he was telling me, he always gets on there. He starts trying to pry that driver out of me on Tuesday. Because our picks are due by Thursday at 7 for those of you listening. So we have to have our driver turned in
before qualifications.
Thursday
qualifications. Night, 7 p.m.
Yeah, Thursday night 7 every week. We got to have our driver turned in. And we'll explain the rules of this fantasy league at some point. Well, we can just go ahead and do it right now. You can pick a car number. Obviously, the driver goes with the number, but if there's a situation like last year where Bubba switched cars, you're going off of the car number, and you can pick that car number twice per year. And then once you've used him a second time, you can't use him anymore, and that includes the playoffs. So it
requires strategy.
Right, it requires a big strategy, and so that way, well, your best strategy is you don't want to run out of drivers at the end of the year, and I see a lot of people do that time and time again. They're busting out all these top name drivers week after week in these first 10, 12 weeks, and then they start running out of drivers, and then all they have left to pick from is the Austin Cindrics and the
Cody Ware.
Yeah, the Cody Wares, BJ McLeods when you get 2 races left, and then they wonder why they kind of fall down in the standings. But so before I pick my driver on Thursdays, I always get that text from Scotty that says, "Who's your driver?" And I won't tell him. I refuse to tell him. Because either one, I don't think he's going to take my driver, but he's just going to talk some smack the whole time. And I won't tell him, and he won't tell me his driver, because I do the same to him. I don't text him first, but I try to get that driver out of him. He will not come off of it for nothing.
All these car numbers, I think we got 25, 26 people in the league this year.
Yeah.
All these members of our NASCAR league, they send their picks directly to me.
Right.
And so I don't come off these picks for nothing. I mean, I'll occasionally get a text, from anyone in the league saying, hey, who did so and so take? And I said, ain't happening.
Right,
I
right.
mean, we got to keep it real.
Yeah.
Now all these numbers they get turned into me, Justin.
Hmm.
You know, so
And by the way, Justin makes his selection on Tuesday,
yeah,
so that way it's fair.
I turned my pick in to three of the people in the group
Right.
on Tuesday evening, so that way, everybody else has got till Thursday, so that way it don't. If I'm picking on Thursday with the rest of the league and everybody's turning their picks into me, I could intentionally block somebody from passing me if I wanted to.
Right.
But I try to keep it fair because I don't take one dime from this NASCAR league unless I place.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, I do it because I love the sport and I love getting. We've got people into the league that wasn't NASCAR fans; they just love to gamble.
Yeah.
And now they're
And
NASCAR
Scotty's
fans.
one of them.
Right now they're NASCAR fans.
Right.
And that's what I like. That's what I enjoy is the competitiveness, the shit talking,
Hmm.
and all that fun stuff.
And it's fun to watch that race on Sunday when you've got a little bit of skin in the game. When
Absolutely.
you put the money up front at the start of the year, but it's all about, like, for me, it's the pride. I look at, like, this week coming up in Fontana. I know where I'm at in the standings, and I always look at, like, the 3 or 4 people above me, and I look at the 2 or 3 people behind me, and who can catch me, who can I catch. So I'm rooting against their driver, I'm rooting for my driver, and it just makes it just one more interesting thing about the race on Sunday.
Yep.
Something else to root for, or to root against if I'm rooting against Scotty, because it just depends on how much shit he's talking to me during the week.
Well,
Depends on how hard I'm pulling against his driver.
That's just it right there. If Scotty has a better week than you.
Oh, I'm going to
you
hear
got a
about
long
it.
week coming
Oh
up.
my gosh, I'm going to hear about it Sunday night if he has a really good
You're going
week.
to hear about it from Sunday night till the next Sunday
Oh yeah.
night.
But if I beat him,
Yeah, crickets.
I don't hear nothing. I hear nothing. So that puts a smile on my face, knowing that I can sleep easy on Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night.
But you got, like you said earlier, you got some ground to make up on Scotty right now.
I do. I got a lot of ground,
He's
but
24 points ahead of you. In the
something
first
like
race.
that. I got 32. He's got 8. Whatever that math is.
24.
Um,
I took Noah Grayson there at the Daytona.
yeah, I took a shot in the dark with Justin Haley. I didn't want to burn, the Kyle Busch, the big names. Of course you got the usual drivers that are going to do good, like the Ryan Blaney's, and that's who he took. So I was really kind of. I don't like to root against Ryan Blaney.
No, I like Blaney.
But
He's
Scott took Ryan Blaney. Yeah, he shares my car number.
Yeah, Ryan Blaney's one of my dark horses when he's talking about Auto Club.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier in the discussion that I think Kyle Busch is going to be a favorite there.
Yeah.
But I think Ryan Blaney's going to be a dark horse that I think some people expect him to win, but I think that team is. I think they're on the right track.
Yeah.
Ryan's a very level-headed driver.
Mm-hmm.
He's out there and he's thinking about the long haul.
Right.
And
I think they're going to win some races this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to win a few.
That team's got too much talent not to.
Yeah.
If they don't, then wouldn't surprise me if there ain't some changes made in the organization.
Right. That driver's seat, it ain't going nowhere.
No.
That's his car.
And Ryan in his short career that he's had so far, he's proved himself to be a hell of a NASCAR driver.
Oh yeah.
So I don't think those changes necessarily fall on Ryan Blaney.
No.
But I think one of my other dark horses for this race is Brad Keselowski. Last year he had a tough season because he had just joined RFK Racing. With Roush, and
he did great at Daytona. Him and Busch are both just kicking ass at Daytona, and then they had the penalty that just knocked them down.
Right, and last year, he had a tough season, but it was his first season as a part owner and a driver. But I think Brad went in there, and you can't make the changes and be the driver in your first year. You can't. It's going to take time.
Right.
And I think by the looks of things, what I've seen so far, they're on the right track right now, and I think Brad's going to open a lot of eyes this year. Mm-hmm. I think he's made some good decisions, some good changes, and Rouse has listened a little bit.
Yeah, he's definitely on the right track. I would not be surprised if he wins quite a few races this year as well. And Brad, I've always kind of liked Brad. I wasn't on his side when him and Carl Edwards got into it way back when, but I've always been kind of a Brad fan, especially when he won the championship and he was drunk on TV giving the interviews,
Yeah.
drinking from this big old trophy-sized
That's every
thing of
that's
Miller
every
Lite.
that's every redneck kid dream. You know,
Exactly. He couldn't even see straight, and he's giving an interview. It was incredible. So I really liked that. And he didn't care.
But no, going back to the NASCAR league, we sent out the driver picks this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I went with Eric Almirola.
Yeah.
At Auto Club. I'm obviously it goes without saying I'm a Stewart Haas
He's a Stewart Haas guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I got a lot of faith in that organization, and Eric Almirola, the last 3 races there.
He's got some pretty good results.
Well, last year he got 6th.
Yeah.
Year before that he got 8th. Year before that he got 9th. So
he's
moving
moving up.
9-8-6. So if he continues that trend, maybe I'll get a top 5 or a win out of the guy.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Well, I went with Eric Jones. My initially I was between Kyle Busch and Bowman. I was really leaning towards Bowman because I didn't want to burn Busch yet.
Bowman the showman.
Yeah, I'm not a Bowman fan. He just hasn't really impressed me terribly in the NASCAR series. But he's a good driver. Respect him and all that. And I give him all kinds of props, but he's just not one of my guys that I look for. You know what I mean?
You can't. And I know exactly what you're saying. Alex Bowman's talented because Rick Hendricks and Jeff Gordon.
He's an Hendrick car.
They wouldn't kept him in that stable without a ride as long as they did.
Right.
If he wasn't.
Yeah, and he gets results, but the only reason I'm not really pushing on Bowman is because of this fantasy league. Just because every time I pick that guy, it seems like he wrecks. He finishes 32nd, and it could be at a track that he usually does great at. I mean, consistent top 5, and then I pick him and he wrecks. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm jinxing him.
Yeah,
maybe he should be mad at me. But that's why I'm kind of like, Bowman. Maybe I'll pick him. I don't know.
But, well, one thing I like about Alex Bowman, it's like every time he wins a race, he wins it on the last damn turn of the race.
Oh, yeah.
He's never leading the race.
Yeah,
going, on the last lap till that turn 3 or turn 4, and he makes that pass. But, that's exciting.
Right. And I feel like Byron's the same way. I feel like they're almost like, in my mind, they're almost like the same driver. Just
the same
obviously
style.
They're not. Their style, their age, their all that stuff. Maybe even it's just the fact that they're in Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson's old numbers. I don't know, but it's just something about those two that I look at totally different than I look at Larson and Elliott. Same team, but I look at Larson and Elliott as this, and I look at Bowman and Byron as this, and all the respect in the world to them, but I just...
All 4 of them, yeah.
Right, I just know, in the back of my mind, if I pick Bowman, I'm either jinxing him or he's jinxing me, one of the two, so I'm usually very gun-shy about picking him.
Yeah. Now, I do see what you're saying, though. I mean,
but Bowman has had good results at Fontana.
Yeah.
So
not bad.
Him and Kyle Busch both have had really, really good results. But I ended up going with Eric Jones. Just because...
Good pick.
For the same reason. He's had quiet
Consistent.
Good results.
He's consistent there.
Yes, he is very consistent there, and I hope he keeps up with the Guns N' Roses theme.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what, I wouldn't mind seeing Motley Crue on that hood this week.
That would be awesome,
pretty cool. Girls up there.
That'd be a heck of a winter circle, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would.
Richard Petty wouldn't know what to do about that, but I don't know. Maybe Alex Bowman might not know what to do with that, but it would definitely be a fun winter circle. But yeah, it's but I ended up going with Busch. I ended up going with Eric Jones. But I really think Kyle Busch is going to win this week.
Yeah.
I just think he is. He's still out to prove from Daytona. He's still out to prove that he's going to win.
Yeah.
In that RCR car.
Well, I mean, Kyle Busch. This is the first year in many years that I think Kyle Busch is just dying to say something and he hasn't. And he's not going to say it vocally.
Yeah.
He's going to say it with that car.
He's going to say it with that bumper.
Yeah.
And Richard will let him. So, I think that's...
I think Eric Almirola, Eric Jones. There's two solid picks for Auto Club, but if you're shooting for the win and you don't care to burn a stud, I'd have to go with Kyle Busch or
Yeah,
Ryan Blaney.
yeah.
Absolutely. I think those two are going to be, two different manufacturers there. You got a Chevy and a Ford. But I
I'm a
think
Chevy guy. I'm a Chevy.
I'm a Ford guy. You notice nobody said I'm a Toyota guy.
Right, there ain't no Toyotas in the room.
He ain't showed up yet.
But yes, I was itching. I had to weigh the. Do I want to burn him now? Do I want to go ahead and use him and possibly get a 0? Because that's the winner gets 0 points, and it's kind of back to the fantasy league. It's kind of like golf. The lowest score wins. So you get the amount of points that your driver finishes in. So if your driver wins, you get 0 points. If your driver finishes third, you get 3. If your driver finishes 10th, you get 10, and so on. So you want less points. So I didn't know if I wanted to go ahead and use Kyle Busch and get that 0 so I could shut Scotty up, or hold off on him and use him down the line. I think I'm going to use him down the line. I went ahead and Eric Jones seems like a pretty good pick.
Do you remember who Scotty took in the...
I believe, if I remember correctly, Scotty picked Suarez. Daniel Suarez. Oh, you don't have to look. I know it for a fact.
Yeah, I think he did.
He's the only one that picked Suarez.
He took the Tootsie's 99.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
a decent pick.
Yeah,
it's a decent pick.
He's been fast.
I mean, and he could be looking at the same scenario that I was. Maybe he had another driver in mind that he's going to take down the road. But I'm really hoping that Eric Jones can maybe push that Suarez out of the way, even though they're both Chevys.
One thing about this NASCAR league is, and just same as the NASCAR season for those teams out there driving every weekend, is it's not a sprint.
No.
This whole season it's a long race. And
it's a marathon.
Exactly. So I mean, it's I'm comfortable right now taking Eric Almirola. I mean, he's proven to be a top 10 driver. Hopefully at Auto Club, one of his better tracks, he can get me a top 5. But if I can get a top 15 out of him, I'll be satisfied.
Oh yeah,
because it's not just about this fantasy league don't pay out money every week. It pays at the end of the season, and that's what people need to remember.
Yeah. Well, our HR department reminds me every time he finishes ahead of me. So every week I'm always like, I'm either cussing or I'm happy. There really is no in between unless we go out on the same lap, and that's very rare. But he has been getting the best of me until the end of the season, and I can usually make a run on him towards the end of the season. And the year before last, I ended up finishing second.
Yeah.
But last year I finished in the basement, and he was reminding me about that every week. So.
And all off season.
And all off season, yeah. So it's not only during the season that we're comparing, but it's even during the off season. We want to get them good couple 2 or 3 months of shit talking to each other. So.
Well, I mean that's.
But that's the fun of it,
Exactly.
We don't do none of it. Even if it's a guy that I don't know, like this Hunter guy in our thing. I don't know who Hunter is, but he had one hell of a season last year.
Yeah,
I'm like, he had to have had the sports almanac from Back to the Future. He had to have seen because he picked Eric Jones at Darlington.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Right,
and
he
won. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know who this Hunter guy is, but
yeah,
he's
a
pretty good.
Of mine I met at work there, and Hunter told me, when I tried to get him into the NASCAR league, I know Hunter likes to gamble and have some fun. He's your average guy, but he told me that he hadn't watched NASCAR pretty much since senior passed. Him and his dad used to watch NASCAR together, and he said after that they just kind of quit.
Mm-hmm.
And but this he joined the league last year for the first time, and every Sunday he's texting me now, watching these races, cussing these drivers,
Yep.
but that's half of my enjoyment of the league. It's nobody in this league gets rich by any means.
No.
But it is bragging rights. It's shit.
It's
talking.
pride in your pick,
Exactly.
and you're pulling for a guy that you normally wouldn't pull for.
Oh, I pull for Chevrolet sometimes. So
yeah.
I'm not a.
Yeah, I mean it's I've had to pick a Toyota on occasion. I really didn't like to do that, but I had to pull for it.
Well, some of them I don't mind so much. Others,
right.
We'll get back to that
But
another episode.
Oh yeah, that's one of the future talks that we'll discuss that. But
so, no, that's about.
So we've been going here for a little while, and this is our first episode. So what do you think? You got anything more to talk about, discuss, people to gripe about, people to?
No, no, I don't. Nobody to complain about. I think it's going to be an interesting year. We've seen a lot of changes over the season.
Yeah,
Rod Priest went into Stuart
he
Hall's.
did
Cole
really good at
Custer,
Daytona.
yeah,
He impressed me at Daytona.
Cole Custer. He
I
took a
hope he can
step.
get back to where he was.
Yeah, he took a step back, but
Yeah,
I think Tony made the right call there. I'm glad he won that battle with Gene
yeah,
on putting Priest in that car.
yeah.
And I think not to say I wanted to see Cole Custer take a step down, but I think that step down is going to help him down the road.
I think it will because now
Wake
he
him
has
up a
the
little
feel
bit.
of NASCAR at the top level, and he knows what it's going to take to be successful.
Right.
So he knows what to focus on now,
Absolutely.
going back forward. Um, I was going to say something just a minute ago. But I have no idea what it was. I forget. But we've been going for an hour. We've been going for a little while now, so we'll just wrap up this episode. I've already thought about, just in our talks today, I've already thought about a few things to talk about for next week, um, and we'll pick right back up there.
Yeah.
And
We'll be talking to you again between Auto Club and Las Vegas.
yep, we'll be right back here doing it again, going for our second show. Thank you for those who are listening, and not sure what day these things will start getting uploaded. We want to get to at some point in the future. We want to get to a certain day that we upload these. But as for now, we're learning, so bear with us. We're figuring it all out. But thank you for those who have listened, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Right in the face.
That's right.